1, 2. It's quite loud. No, it's okay. Okay, it's about time, so welcome everybody. It's my pleasure to moderate this session. My name's Caroline Holt, and I'm the Global Director for Disasters, Climate and Crisis at the International Federation of Red Cross and Red Crescent based here in Geneva. Welcome to Geneva for those of you that have traveled, and welcome online. Great to see such interest in this session. I also want to very warmly welcome our panelists here and our participants in this session on inclusive and multisectoral approach to effective preparedness. You're all very welcome, and I'm very much looking forward to a rich discussion. And it is a discussion. Those of you here in person and those of you online, please, we would like to hear from you. We would love your questions. We want you to feel that this is a conversation and that we can engage together. There are a couple of housekeeping things that I just need to run through before we start. There will be interpretation services, I understand, in all 6 official UN languages. If you're watching online and you wish to follow the session in one of the 3 UN languages that you can select, please go to your preferred language via the interactive program page. Participants in the room, I see that all of you have headsets. If not, please go and grab yourself a headset so that you can be fully involved in this. And for all of us, social media, this is the way to get our message out, right? So please, I encourage you to share about this session on social media. And if you do, please use the hashtag #ActForResilienceToday. That will get it to the right place, and it will continue that conversation online. Okay, so let's frame things a little bit for the session today. We know that the midterm review of the Sendai Framework for Disaster Risk Reduction 2015 to 2030 has found that countries still largely lack effective pre-disaster preparedness for recovery, rehabilitation, and reconstruction. We also know that the World Resilient Recovery Conference, the WRRC, that took place on the 3rd of June, has also pointed out some key areas. Priority actions to enhance readiness for resilient recovery have been launched. This really acts as a call to action to governments and partners to join hands in enhancing readiness for resilient recovery and building back better. This session today will contribute to the way forward and look at how we can jointly turn these 10 actions into reality and make it more than just words, so that when disasters do strike, we're not only ready to respond, but ready to recover sustainably and effectively. We also need to continue enhancing pre-disaster preparedness for effective response and recovery, and know that this will require capacity building, sharing of knowledge, good practice, engagement and empowerment of communities and vulnerable populations. Therefore, today's speakers will share the good practices and learning from their communities and countries, and talk to us about how they are accelerating and investing in preparedness efforts across key sectors whilst addressing cross-cutting themes such as inclusion. The outcomes of this session, as I say, will continue to feed into that outcome document. So it's critical, and that engagement from you all online and here in the room is key. Okay, at the end of this session, I hope that we've been able to focus on strengthening effective pre-disaster preparedness to effectively respond and build back better in recovery, rehabilitation, and reconstruction. I hope it will allow us to explore a bit the importance of inclusive and cross-sectoral approaches and look and seek to learn how effective preparedness saves lives and reduces losses. And it will also highlight progress made in global disaster preparedness efforts, including anticipatory action and multi-hazard approaches, whilst addressing challenges such as inadequate investment and the exclusion of vulnerable groups. Whether we achieve that or not is something that I'd also like you to hold us to account to. Let's make this a conversation and a discussion. Just so that you're aware, this session will use a Slido platform for the audience to engage and share your perspectives. You will also be able to ask questions to the speakers, so please scan the QR code or click on the link provided in the chat. We've also now activated the Q&A tab for participants to post questions to the speakers. And now to the important bit. Let's introduce our esteemed guests and speakers today. So we have with us Amine Heyrapetian, the Sendai Focal Point and Vice Rector of Educational Complex, Ministry of Internal Affairs for Armenia. Welcome.
Thank you very much.
We also have Serik Junisbekov, National Sendai Focal Point for Kazakhstan. I'm delighted to introduce Jay Nasilasila, DRR and Disability Inclusion Officer for Fiji DRCC. We have Terayuki Ito, the Director General for the Global Environment Department, Japan International Cooperation Agency. You're very welcome. We have Claudia Diaz. Thank you, Claudia. We have Claudia Diaz, the Institutional Development Director for Fundase. We have Gloria Kunyenga, the Director of Programs with the Malawi Red Cross. And we have Enrique Guevara Ortiz. Welcome, the Director General, National Center for Disaster Prevention in Mexico. Right, let's dive in without further ado. So, the first round of speakers. My first question goes to Amine, to Serik, and to Jay. And the question that I'd like to pose you is, do you agree that there are sufficient examples that can demonstrate effective partnership, including cross-sectoral and inclusive preparedness? Amine, over to you.
Oh, well, thank you very much, first of all, for introduction and this very interesting discussion. And also the questions. I will go quickly to the answer without any preamble on that. I do agree, first of all, that there are already good examples. We just need to be careful to recognize them, to learn from all past examples and to apply them. I like this principle very much, the principle that is called leaving no one behind, but also all of the society, everybody, completely and total. It means the universal, everything on the globe. We cannot have an atom or a molecule out of the earth going somewhere else and saying that this belongs us. It is on our earth, and we can learn from nature, we can learn from different societies and cultures how to learn from it. And by the way, all of the society or inclusion approach does already exist in all our cultures, all the present here and through the nations. These are through dances, round dances that we hold hands. In all cultures they exist. Singing like we are sitting right now. And I don't know how long would you like me to answer, but just give me a note, because if the answer is short, then I will say just yes, I know, but if not, I will go on.
Do you have any examples maybe that you could share?
I do.
Perhaps one example would be useful.
The example is, it comes from a little bit past. It is, again, a cultural thing when the elderly were looking after the children and everybody was following everybody's well-being. And the earliest example of that goes back to millennia in reality. There was a cave, Shanidar, where human bones were found with a severe wound that the person would never survive, whether not be the care of his co-villagers who were taking care for him. We have the proof. So this is my answer now.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Amine, for that. Serik, I'd like to ask you the same question, please.
Good morning, all the participants of this event. I would start with a technical issue. There was no Russian translation, and I could not hear the question. Would you please repeat the question?
Sorry, I couldn't understand that. So the question is, do you think that there are sufficient examples to demonstrate effective partnership, including cross-sectoral and inclusive preparedness?
I could not still hear.
Да, здесь бы хотелось сказать, конечно, очень важно, когда различные государственные органы.
It's very important that various governmental organizations and NGOs are capable to solve issues. In Kazakhstan, within the multisectoral development, we have a state emergency commission in which scientists and governmental employees are represented.
Great, thank you very much for your response. And Jay, do you share the same opinion?
Thank you very much. Thank you, moderator, and warm greetings to everyone. As we sit here this morning to deliberate on this particular session theme about inclusive multisectoral approach to effective preparedness. For me, I would also provide, I think, otherwise from another perspective, because it reflects these statements sounds promising. It reflects our collective ambition to create a system that leaves no one behind, particularly when disasters strike. But I want to begin with sharing other perspective that I don't believe we are there yet. In fact, I believe we are still quite far or still continuing on the journey, realizing this vision in practice. Yes, we talk about inclusion. Yes, we reference multisectoral collaboration in our frameworks and report. But the reality on the ground, especially in places like where I come from, for us in the Pacific, in our communities across, too many people are still being left behind. Persons with disabilities, the women in rural areas, the LGBTQI individuals, the informal sectors, workers, they remain on the margin of preparedness effort. I speak today from a dual lens as someone who has been in the DRR space, and also someone from the Pacific where climate-induced disasters are not just theoretical risk, but lived experiences. So it's happening more frequently and with devastating consequences. So let me be honest, in many cases, what we call inclusive or multisectoral approaches are at the best, but at some stages tick the box. They are built on invitation, not on partnerships, on representations, no redistribution of powers. And often they are driven by external timelines and donors' agendas rather than the rhythm and the realities of communities we claim to serve. So what exactly is not working? Let me highlight 3 critical gaps that I've observed repeatedly. First, inclusion is still conditional and superficial. Persons with disability are often invited to consultation meeting only after decisions have already been made. The voice of Organization of Persons with Disabilities, OPDs, are rarely integrated from the outset, and even more, rarely are they funded to co-lead or co-design preparedness plans. The invitation to participate does not come with the power or the resource to influence the outcome. We are seeing this. OPD are asked to validate plan, but not write them. They are thanked for their input, but not compensated for their expertise. That's not inclusion. And that's, and secondly, sectors, it is important to also note that sectors need to work to collaborate more, so that disability are not found as sitting quietly at their own corner and often viewed as cross-cutting issues, but treated as an afterthought. And what happens when a disaster strikes? We scrambled. Agency duplicate effort. Vital information is missing. Coordination becomes crisis in itself. We are reacting and not responding. This is not what true multisectorals look like. And thirdly, localization remains performative. We say we believe in local leadership, but community-based actors are too often treated as implementers and not equal partners. They are handed pre-written checklists and templates. Their role is to deliver, not to decide. And that reinforces that very hierarchies that keep preparedness ineffective. So from this, what we need to change? So how do we move forward? How do we build systems that are not just more inclusive and multisectoral on paper, but in practice? I believe 3 shifts are essential. 1, we need to redefine what we mean by inclusion. So inclusion cannot be just a presence. It must be about power. If we truly want to center those most at risk, we must fund them, equip them, trust them to lead. That means direct investments in organization of persons with disabilities, women's organizations, the diverse surges or LGBT organizations, and youth-led movement. These are not just beneficiaries of preparedness plans. They are knowledge holders, technical experts, and leaders in their own rights. We have seen OPDs running early warning systems and other movements reach more people than national systems. I've seen more women network organize emergency response faster than other official agencies. So these groups need co-funding, not just project grant. They need seats at the decision-making table, not just microphone at community consultation. We need to build systems that are intersectional and not just inclusive. So preparedness planning must reflect the complexity of real life. They are disabled and elderly, rural and queer, poor and displaced. The system we must build must respond to these intersecting realities. So intersectionality is not just a theory, it's a tool for survival. If we don't count of how these identities overlap and compound risk, we are designing plans for an ideal world that doesn't exist. That means connecting disaggregated data. It means engaging people as whole human beings and not just a checkbox. So we need to invest in sustained structures and accountable multi-sectoral coordination. So right now, coordination often lies on personal relationships, goodwill, or ad hoc meeting. But we need to institutionalize this work. That means dedicated budget lines for interagencies, collaborations. It means clear mandate for multisectoral task force with timeline rules, consequences for inactions, and it means creating accountability mechanism that outlasted single disaster cycle or funding round. We also need to shift how we define expertise. Right now, it's based on how who can write the base report. Sorry, let me repeat that again. We also need to shift how we define expertise. Right now, it's based on who can write the best report in English. But communities have different knowledge systems, oral tradition, relational intelligence, ancestral understanding of risk. So this must be valued in our planning and decision making. I want to challenge all of us not just to embrace the idea of inclusion and multisectorality, but to practice it. Because practice requires more intention, it requires disruptions, it means being willing to step back so others can step forward. It means challenging donors who fund projects for impact metrics. It means calling out colleagues and institutions who use the language of inclusion without making structural changes. We can and must do better, and the stakeholders could not be higher. As the climate crisis accelerates, as inequalities deepen, as disaster risks become more complex, our preparedness system must be anchored in justice, not charity, not symbolism, but justice. Let us move from consultation to co-leadership, from siloed sectors to shared strategies, from tokenistic inclusion to true power sharing. So let us build a system where those most affected are not only heard, but at the helm, shaping the policies, owning the data, and leading the response. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Jay, for really challenging and encouraging us to think more about this particular topic. And with that, I'd like to also throw back to our other two first panelists, to Amine and to Serik. Do you have anything that you'd like to add now, having heard from Jay? Perhaps, Amine, if we start, and then
Yes.
Serik, I will come. Thank you.
Well, yes, while I was thinking that this was just a warm-up question, therefore I answered in a short way and in a sophistical way, philosophical. I must say that in reality, our country in Armenia, you were, I think, asking our experiences, has established an interesting way of cooperation, which I like in saying it exists in the national platform, first of all, for disaster risk reduction, although not everybody really understands the role of such a platform, where I'm saying people sitting inclusively together from academia, from institutions, governmental institutions, international organizations, organizations for care for elderly people, these constant kitchen soup organizations that are really trying to solicitate money and try to feed the elderly people who are already forgotten by the community. So I think that this is one of the best examples that I could give. And also for the best preparedness for the future, we speak a lot about disaster risk reduction measures and mechanisms to apply pre-planned, financed, budget-tugged processes right now, which is really I'm supporting very much. But also I want to say that we need to address to the communities, to the local communities, and to build resilience exactly there. And this is where everything starts and everything ends. When the disaster comes, it hits the community. And it is the community to understand and really fully feels its power and its right to be stronger and resilient. So in my understanding, the role of the governments, of the central governments, is to strengthen the community by all of the means possible and to create resilience hubs, to help them transfer the international policies on how we can support these communities' race, and also getting to know each other better. If you know everybody who you have in the community, if you engage more, not only in the disaster, but you have to know each other before the disaster. Who is this person? What is he capable of? Maybe he is a very modest person, he will never speak out, but we need to know that he is capable of doing miracle with his hands. So this is really important to know, knowing in the community, so creating ties and bonds in the community. What I would like to call for this fishbowl discussion and also this section in general, and out there behind these screens, the people who are watching right now, I want to say that this society has a serious problem. We are very much self-centered culture already, globally. We are too much thinking of our own benefits, most of us, but we need to think outside a little bit, to get more connected, to not to enclose inside in front of our telephones, in front of our screens, and eliminating our special area. Of course, with that due respect and understanding for the disaster, it will never ask anything, who we are, what color of hair we have, what physical abilities we do have, how old we are, and what we can do. Therefore, we need to know each other better before the disaster. We need to create volunteers groups to help, and not only just making check marks that we have done this and this. Everything that I have spoken is being discussed in our country at different levels. I am advocating for this at different levels, and I hope that institutionally it will be success in every country. I'm looking forward, and I hope and I want to see it realized. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Very important that we hear the full message that you have to bring, so thank you. Serik, can I invite you also to add, if you'd like to your initial statement? Thank you.
Да, наверное, скорее всего, из-за технической заминки и отсутствия перевода, наверное, мы действительно восприняли, что...
Yes, due to technical issues with the simultaneous interpretation, we had an impression that we are talking only fragmentary, but I would like to elaborate on my position and my opinion. This is a big honor for me to participate in this forum. I want to tell you about Republic of Kazakhstan. We have 7 categories of emergencies, and our government have introduced measures and works to prevent the catastrophes and emergencies. There are also measures to pay special attention to the vulnerable groups of population, including people with disabilities during natural and technical disasters. Every person is guaranteed a right for information about any hazards or emergencies. The information and early information is provided by electrical and other technical means of alarming and notification of people. The information shall be provided on the internet resources. In the Republic of Kazakhstan, there is a running project for automatic emergency information of the population using the cell phone podcast technology. This approach allows information within 10 to 12 seconds, covering the entire population of the country. The system of notification was tested during earthquakes. For information of the population with push notifications on their smartphones. The information also includes recommendations for proceeding during emergencies. During the development of the mobile app, the Ministry of Emergencies also held conversations with representatives of vulnerable population groups. There is also accessible features, including audio channel for information and notifications. One of the key elements for the resilience of the society is education and sensibilization of the population, so that the people know how to act during an emergency. This includes skills in helping each other and helping themselves. This also helps to mitigate the losses in human lives and health. There is a national research center ran by the Ministry of Emergencies, where up to 2,000 employees of the Ministry of Emergencies being trained annually. There are trainings and education provided. In the last year, 330 drills had been provided with a special focus on people with disabilities. We also conduct work with schools. The curriculum includes trainings in how to proceed during fire or other emergencies. We arranged for hundreds of events, including school students. The educational institutions are being attested and certified for preparedness for any kind of emergency. All the instructions and manuals had been translated into Braille language and distributed between the schools. This includes the action plan for inclusive policy implementation in Kazakhstan 2025 to 2030, policies for securing the people with disabilities during emergencies. The security rules for elevators and other equipment, or include the accessibility features. There are two national standards in Kazakhstan. So the requirements for points of collection are entirely regulated. There is a deputy minister advisor for inclusivity policy in the government of Kazakhstan. The inclusiveness is being processed further on, and we constantly work on improving our policies. We committed to providing the inclusive approach, and we have a set of measures aimed at providing healthcare services to people who are vulnerable and have special demands. There are B and C class ambulance cars, which are equipped with all the possible means needed for providing inclusion and accessibility. The medical emergency center at was equipped with new American cars in the beginning of 2025. We also have helicopters which are equipped and suitable for evacuation of people, including people with disabilities. This makes possible to transport any people with any disabilities during an emergency. We also have special means of transportation, including social taxis, buses, and so on. We have a multisectoral council covering all academia, ministries, social society representatives. We follow innovative approaches based on the cutting-edge technologies and analytical instruments.
Mr. Serik,
Dear colleagues, we have done a lot, and time is short. It's impossible to describe everything. I want to conclude with telling about commitment of Kazakhstan and ensure you that the Ministry of Emergencies of the Republic of Kazakhstan working on achieving the aims and targets. And also, I want to thank you very much for the invitation. The dealing and managing emergencies is one of the priorities of the government of Kazakhstan. Thank you very much.
thank you so much. Time is indeed short, so thank you very much for your contributions there. Thank you to all of you for the very full answers. I think difficult really to summarize, but some of the key points that I just want to reflect upon so that we can think about it. I hope that online you're adding questions and you're also engaging in this conversation. But we heard from Amini, we need to get to know each other before the disaster. We need to build that trust. Society has a problem of self-centeredness. I'm going away with a lot of profound thoughts here. The community needs to feel its power and its right to lead and to be part of the conversation. We're all connected. We can't forget the lessons of the past, and we need to make sure that we take care of each other as a system, as a whole, and move forward. Serik, thank you so much for sharing such clear examples about what you're doing in Kazakhstan, and I take my hat off to you and your levels of preparedness and inclusivity around this. But you also reflected on the importance to work collectively. I like how you are making this very practical. You're using technology, you're using podcasts, you're establishing standards, government ministerial roles to take this forward, and that certainly helps. When the government takes the lead and brings in and ensures that it's bringing in and including all aspects of society, then I think we start on a good footing. And Jay, we're still far from ideal. We need to make sure that this isn't just paying lip service to something that everyone agrees is a good idea. It's actually about meaning it, about bringing people to the table in a meaningful way, not just to tick boxes and not just for, symbolism, as you said. Step back so others can step forward. I love that. I think it's very profound in terms of what we mean when we talk about inclusion. It's not just the voices of the few, it's the voices of all that are critical here. Having dedicated budget lines and making sure that we are working more than just presence. It's about trust, it's about power, it's about feeling part of and leading that conversation. So thank you to all of you. I really very much respect your ability to share so clearly your own experiences. I'm sure I've not done you justice in this short time, but I hope that we will continue that conversation a bit. So with that, I would actually, to a slight last-minute change of plan, I would like to invite our colleagues, Enrique and Claudia, please come and join us. No, I think we're widening the circle. It's about inclusion. Nobody is stepping away. We are all widening the circle here and being part of this together. So does everybody have enough space? Is everyone comfortable? Okay. Right, so I think, let me have a look at the run of show. I think we have now the second question. And this one goes to Teruyuki and to Claudia. The second question, do you think that we have the tools to effectively measure preparedness? Over to you. Do we have the tools to effectively measure preparedness? Over to you.
Okay. Thank you, Caroline. Yes, this is a very good question, I think. I would say I agree with you to some extent. When national or local DRR plans are formulated, a set of KPI or indicators are identified to monitor progress of the plans, depending upon their circumstances and priorities. And also, as far as I understand, the UNDRR published disaster resilience scorecard for cities. So it could be a good tool to measure and monitor preparedness as well. And the question, the question is whether these indicators are effective to monitor progress or not. I don't have a very good answer at this moment, but we do better to keep doing so. And I'm hoping that the researchers and academia will look into the matter so that we can improve the indicators. Then, taking this opportunity, I'd like to touch upon some important issues for effective preparedness. From my viewpoint, it is always very important to overview entire disaster management cycle. Sometimes we focus on the response or sometimes prevention, but we always have to look overview. Then in Japan, we have the Basic Act on Disaster Management, which is clearly specifies the responsibilities and roles of all ministries, agencies, prefectures, municipalities, and residents, and also ensures the participation of the private sector and academia. Thus, disaster reduction is a kind of a form in which all actors are supposed to participate, which is an inclusive manner. And based on the priority actions of a Sendai framework, JICA is implementing a cooperation based on Japan's experience at all stages. In the priority 1, the understanding disaster risk, it is important to analyze and understand risks based on scientific data. And we are working to strengthen observation capabilities, strengthen prediction of future risk, and promote residents' understanding of disasters. And also, nowadays, we are strengthening a partnership with universities and research institute from the perspective of science and technology. In the priority 2, we are working to strengthen disaster risk governance so that the National Disaster Management Authority can use risk information to formulate disaster prevention plans and begin priority disaster prevention projects. In priority 3, pre-disaster investment, we are working, for example, to transfer technology of appropriate design for flood infrastructure and earthquake-resistant buildings. As well as to develop facilities through grant aids and sovereign loans. Not only in Japanese cooperation, but also through the use of national budgets and partnership with development partners, efforts are being made to reduce economic damage. In priority 4, preparedness. For response, we JICA can dispatch emergency relief team. And we also have projects to improve early warnings by strengthening meteorological observation. For recovery, rehabilitation, and reconstruction, we support through Build Back Better concept with technical and financial cooperation. It is important for local residents to understand the risks in their residential areas, what types of disasters are likely to occur, and what preparedness are needed in the area to deal with. Participation of local residents is especially important from the perspective of inclusion. Aging is also a challenge in the rural areas in Japan. And the situation of elderly people and persons with disabilities in the area are being grasped. Nowadays, the local governments are supposed to prepare the list of these people beforehand so that the local residents can support them in the event of a disaster. So I think Japan's experience can be utilized in all stages of disaster management cycle to strengthen preparedness. We will discuss with our partner countries based on dialogue with them. And also, we are trying to mainstream disaster risk reduction in JICA's operations. For example, in the agriculture sector, we are working on examining irrigation facilities for drought-resistant agriculture, making subway entrances less susceptible to flooding in flood-prone South Asian regions, and building disaster-resistant medical facilities in the areas prone to monsoons, for example. Last but not least, to achieve effective preparedness, the cooperation between related organizations, line ministries is very much important. And in particular, it is important to promote dialogue and understanding with Ministry of Finance for the budget. And during this GP, we saw that some of the people, some of the participants are from Ministry of Finance. So I think this is a very good step. Okay, that's all. Thank you very much.
Excellent, thank you. And very wise advice there. Always include the person with the budget, right? That's very wise advice, I think, for all aspects of our life. Thank you for sharing. So, yeah, that same question, please, Claudia, if that's okay with you.
Yes. Bueno, buenos días a todos.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I think as region in Central America, we are in a highly vulnerable area, but we advanced a lot in the partnership public and private to reduce the impact of events. However, we still have lots of things to do, lots of works to do. From the private sector, where I come for, we have 140 companies, and we are a focal point in Horizon Honduras. We've been working this capacity to generate risk knowledge and resilience in companies and for all the actors involved. But during the process that we started around 10 years ago, we identified that there are things to work. We had a regional forum 2 weeks ago in Honduras with that objective to strengthen our knowledge and our management. And within the analysis we did, we detected that even if there's a multisectoral dialogue, it should be continuous to generate resilience. Not when the event is close or near or in the hurricane season. We should dialogue and talk always in order to create trust, because the more we know each other, the more we work together, we generate synergies. The co-creation of solutions also allows to improve that transparent way of working among actors. We should also include communities and all representatives from society in this co-creation, because they will have a feeling of belonging, and this will help in having effective solutions. Private sector cannot only be seen for recovery once the catastrophe is there and we have to support with food or medicines. private sector should be included since prevention, because this will allow them to protect companies, communities, workers, and we've seen a higher capacity in giving a response when private sector is involved since the beginning. The recovery is quicker and better. Also, respecting the knowledge of the other is important because it allows, for instance, that the knowledge by people with disability can also improve our strategies. And also ancestral knowledge can be included in the strategies. Technologies. Private sector has a high capacity in investing in technologies, and in our countries we see this investment, but data is not shared. So we believe to create synergies so that we share all the information we have, because this will increase our resiliency. The information that is created in these platforms must be translated for everybody. We may have the best platforms, the best innovation, but if people do not know how to understand that, we have the same problem. And something very important I would like to share with you is to share shared data to see the progress, to see the situation, also tracking all those data, all the actions, and the recovery after disaster, because this allows us to have knowledge and to use all that information. Integration of people with disability is important. We still have a challenge in integrating them in the labor market. There's a big gap there. So we must be aware that the list of things to do is very long. Prioritization of strategies is important. For instance, natural focus, also working with evidence, scientific evidence, and integrating that in our activities. In Honduras, we tried to work in the platform. We are a very important tool in the country. We have challenges to work on, and we need tools. But if we have goodwill, trust, and I believe we have a bright future and a more resilient future ahead of us. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much for also sharing very clearly your experiences in your context. Once again, I think a lot of the themes are coming around. We're hearing similar yet differing perspectives, or different contexts, should I say, and similar experiences in different contexts. And I think that knowledge exchange and that space for learning from each other is absolutely critical. The measuring and the monitoring you referenced, we're not there yet, and I think we need to also recognize where we have gaps, where we need to continue to invest, where there really are things that we need to continue to work on. I like that you've got your priorities there in terms of, you know, the sort of 4 areas that you're working, and preparedness, I think I heard come out as well. We can't forget the importance of preparedness. It also related to what you just said then, Claudia, around we're more than just a relief, a response mentality. It needs to be a preparedness and an inclusive mentality from the start, so that we're not just the band-aid that goes in and the plaster, the short-term fix that goes in, but actually this is a conversation and a narrative and a way of being and a behavior. You also mentioned very clearly the private sector engagement and the importance of that, and learning across the region as well. I think there are some big pieces of the jigsaw that we don't include by not engaging effectively with the private sector as a whole, across the humanitarian sector, to be quite honest, not just on when it comes to DRR and inclusion, but I think it's a really important part of society that we need to also bring in. And then that translation, so that we have meaningful action for everybody. Not everybody receives information in the same way. Not everybody knows what to do with the information they receive. So I think understanding as well the need to nuance and the need to tailor our approaches according to the needs of those that we seek to serve is key. Once again, I think I've tried to summarize, but it's a tricky job, as you can tell, because the discussions are so rich. Thank you. We still have a third question, but before we do, I just want to check, are there any questions in the room or online that are burning that we would like to pose to our panelists at this first interval? Nazgul, is there anything on your side from the online community that we can bring to the conversation?
Yeah.
I also think that for the QR code, inputs can be submitted, so I'm told, for the next 10 minutes or so. So make the most of your space and your time online. Do we have anything online, Sandra? Yeah, we do.
Yeah, we have one question here.
Please, yeah.
To the speakers. So it's about the mental health. It's essential for building resilience. How can we ensure mental health is integrated into preparedness rather than dealing with it in the aftermath? Thanks.
Excellent question. We have a very willing respondent here. I will throw it open, so please feel free, but Aline first.
I don't know who exactly the question was addressed to, but I have a good example on that. As a Sendai focal point and one who was trying to find really solutions and not only saying policies on that, I have contacted an organization who deals with people with mental health, and there are many organizations like that. It is not exactly, I mean, this is a twofold work. First of all, we need to prepare the personnel or those who is taking care of the people with mental health. These are trainings and explanatory work and guidelines for them. They know better who they support, and they know better how to speak to him when he knows that, or she knows that there is noise, what to do in this position or in this situation. There are guidelines and there is work to be done in that, and we have agreed with this organization, with my friend already. We became very good friends on this matter, and I will support them as much as I can, and to raise any experience that is already in the field. Whoever knows, please share. Because this is really crucial. We need to understand, and the thing is that this is a really burning question because we are having more and more children with different problems of mental, too much activity or too much anxiety or different other levels of mental related issues. So I would drive the attention that this is not exactly only to them, to teach them, but to work with the personnel, the parents, the take carers. So this is my answer.
It's a whole of society approach. Please, welcome.
I'd like to share that in Mexico, there's a department which is a National Commission for Mental Health and Addictions, and it's within the state, and we support population before, during, and afterwards in matters of mental health.
Excellent example. Thank you very much, and good that this is embedded also in the thinking of the governments and the ministries. Great, thank you. Any questions from the audience here in the room? There's one behind, please.
Thanks to all the participants. It's a really interesting discussion. I was just wondering about other strands of Sendai, multi-hazards, where we might have hazards that cascade or compound. What does that mean in terms of sort of preparedness for people with more complex needs, where the types of preparedness actions might be quite different depending on the hazard?
Excellent question. Anybody would like to, please go ahead.
Justamente Ahorita estamos trabajando con
Yes, we are working with Japan and El Salvador right now in a project for analyzing composed risk in case of tsunami and earthquake for seaports, sea harbors. That's very specific. When there's a earthquake, there may be a tsunami afterwards, and that can have effects. And those effects are seen on harbors where there are chemical substances. So there are several effects that go one after the other because the earthquake brings the tsunami, and tsunami may bring some spills of dangerous substances. And then the economy is stopped because the harbor is closed. It also has consequences in food systems, and these are composed risks.
Great, thank you. Very quickly.
A very short intervention answer to your question. The cascading complex disasters, they are being constantly discussed, and this is logic. But also I would answer that there is need which is done already. I mean, the question is raised among the UN family. UNEC Convention for Industrial Accidents has a special branch for addressing to natural technological hazards. So this is another topic that we need to take account of. Thank you.
Thank you. There's plenty of time for conversation as well after this session, so thank you. Right, in the interest of time, I will now move us forward, and thank you very much for waiting patiently, our third panelist. But I turn now the questions to Gloria and to Enrique, and the next question to you both. Do you think that anticipatory action is the solution to the ongoing challenges in preparedness efforts? Gloria, over to you.
Thank you so much, Caroline. For me, I would say not 100% in agreement that it is the solution to the preparedness challenges. Because when we look at preparedness is actually part of the disaster risk management continuum, which looks at the preparedness phase. You go from the preparedness phase, you go to the second phase, which is the response, and then the recovery phase. So when we look at the preparedness phase of the disaster risk management continuum, anticipatory action is one of the components. It's just one of the components, and it aims at reducing the disaster impacts. And when we look at anticipatory action, through the definition of the anticipatory action is a set of actions that are taken to prevent, mitigate potential disaster impacts before a shock or acute impacts are felt. So it is the part of the process of the preparedness. So preparedness, when we look at preparedness, is just too broad, and it includes even readiness activities as well as preparedness for effective response. And anticipatory action up to the response and recovery. And anticipatory action is part of that process of preparedness. Therefore, it's not an end on itself. We have to ensure that the communities and actors are ready for reducing the disaster impacts. So for me, I would say I wouldn't agree 100%. When we now look at the experiences that we have as far as anticipatory action is concerned, it is actually a very effective way of preparedness, but it has its own limitations. So when we look at the limitations, the first limitation that we can look at is the actual dependence on pre-agreed funding. Most of the times when we look at anticipatory action, we depend on pre-agreed funding. And activation of early actions, it depends on the availability of funds. And during the building phase, we have seen that like in our case, we have seen that we used very good and vibrant system for anticipatory action, but sometimes we end up acting outside the window because of lack of resources to implement early actions. So as much as we have very good systems and we have introduced these systems at country level, at national level, but we see that when it comes to early action, implementation of early action activities, we find that we cannot be able to access the fund, and because of that, we fail to implement all the anticipatory actions that we can plan to do. And when we also look at the fuel funding, it has to be readily available. For example, in our case, if we are to do early actions like distribution of multi-purpose cash to the affected population, this has to be done immediately after the triggers have been reached or the thresholds of the affected communities have been reached. But for us to start activating the early actions, funding has to be readily available, and we have to do it timely. This is a very big challenge in most of our interventions. And the other limitation factor is that there are limitations on the scope and the dependence on accurate forecast. Anticipatory action approach has not been fully contextualized for community level. I'm not very sure of other countries, but in our case, most of the anticipatory actions have been designed for national level, which means that implementation requires community understanding. But this understanding is very clear and very understood very well by the actors at national level. So most actors have not yet integrated it at community level. So this is a challenge. A good example is when we generate forecasts of the impact of the hazard, and that forecast has been issued, we find that at national level, it will be very well understood by the stakeholders, and they will easily be able to support the communities. But at community level, you find that the community members haven't understood it, and this defeats the purpose of the early actions, or early warning, early warning and early actions. So effective designing of anticipatory action requires a bottom-up approach and capacity strengthening to ensure that there is ownership by the communities, which is lacking at the moment. But also anticipatory actions, they hinges on reliable data, and it also hinges on early warning system for its effective implementation. When there is low capacity context, the system may be weak, or it might not even exist. This limits the anticipatory action effectiveness. For instance, also, the hydrometeorological disaster relies heavily on scientific historical data. When we look at this historical data, you find that in most countries, this is very much limited. This is also a challenge. And on the other hand, most of the anticipatory actions initiatives, they currently focus on predictable fast onset hazards. Like in our case, most of the hazards that we are focusing on are floods and cyclones. But slow onset disasters like droughts or complex emergencies, it is very hard to address because of the systems that we are currently using. So that is also a limitation. Another limitation is also adoption of anticipatory action across all types of disasters and geographies. Preparedness activities are general, while anticipatory actions only focus on areas that have been triggered. So it is like there is that limitation whereby the anticipatory action, when we look at the preparedness aspect as a whole, it focuses preparedness for the whole areas. Even when it means geographical areas, it means it covers the whole geographical area. But for the anticipatory action, we only focus on areas that will be triggered. And skill analysis for forecast has to be accurate. And initially, as stated already, the limited and availability of data reduces the forecasting skill analysis to determine the accuracy of thresholds and impact areas. So you find that sometimes the trigger, we might find that we have areas that we are expecting to be triggered, but the disaster can happen in another area which was not part of the areas that we are forecasted. There are a lot of factors that we can consider, but in the last one, I'll talk about the sustainability of anticipatory actions. It requires multisectoral approach and addressing community needs and full participation of all community groups for its sustainability. So if this is not possible, then the efforts will be in vain, as communities will end up going or depending on disasters instead of anticipating. So they will continue depending on responding rather than the actual anticipatory action. So it has to be community approach. The communities should be involved. Funding is the only option for sustainable for sustaining the anticipatory actions and be owned by the governments. There has to be ongoing domestic funding for local governments. If this is complete, it has to completely work out.
Thank you, Gloria. There's a lot more that we could all share, I'm sure, and thank you for being so comprehensive and clear in your approach. So, Mr. Ortiz, over to you. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this as well, on this same question. Thank you.
Sí, gracias, Caroline.
Yes, thank you so much, Caroline. Thank you so much, Caroline.
La respuesta rápida.
My quick answer is yes, it is really important to implement anticipatory actions, early actions. But I want to explain that there must be a framework, and this must be included within many other actions. The prior moments to the impact of a hazard can be critical for an effective answer, and these moments represent this thin line between saving lives or losing lives, between protecting live environments, saving collapse. A quicker, more efficient reaction in the previous moments to the impact of a hazard can make the difference both in humanitarian and economic terms. From Mexico, we have learned that this early action is an essential component that is part of the solution to the challenges of this preparedness. Only when, in a systematic way, this is integrated with the social, institutional, and community process, they make up what it is the integral management of this disaster risk, as we call it in Mexico. In a more operative dimension, this early action is to act based on forecast in an imminent hazard scenario. Also, to anticipate is not enough if there is not a consolidated knowledge of the risk, political will to make early decisions, funding, a foreseeable and flexible funding, and above all, a society that must be informed and must have the capacities to implement these right and necessary actions. As Dr. has said before, the management of risks really comprehends many stages. So preventing, mitigating the front of the risks at previous stages to get down, and also the ones of reconstruction need a planning, an anticipatory planning to be effective. And now allow me please to give examples such as anticipatory actions can make the difference between life and death. And in the case of Mexico, I am also going to talk about the tropical cyclones. Before they happen, we have got this National Meteorological Service, which follows up this meteorological phenomena and advise the Civil Protection Service. Also, from a low pressure, this can be detected. I received in my cell phone one area of low pressure, and they are reporting that there is a probability of 40% for a cyclone to happen in the next 48 hours, and 80% of the possibilities that a cyclone can be formed in the next 7 days. This is a very important way of designing actions and to exert them. The early actions are performed for the cleaning of the river channels, sewage in order to avoid floods, and an interinstitutional group is also met with many participants from many sectors, and the session and the active alert system is activated in 5 levels, and for each levels many actions have been defined. that have to be implemented from the green to the red color. In the green one, we have a piece of advice. Everybody pays attention to it. And as the alert level increases, actions are implementing depending on the follow-up of this tropical cyclone. Temporal shelters are activated and the coordination from the federal government is deployed from the civil protection to arrive at those areas where the impact is going to be felt in order to coordinate all the actions among all the dependencies. A massive diffusion is made through different media of radio and so on, social networks, so that people can receive that information and they start to implement in Mexico the actions. Each family must have theoretically a family plan of civil protection. So when they receive a piece of advice, they do know what they have to do to receive this, to have this tropical, when they suffer from this tropical cyclone. There is a program of civil protection and there are some actions. So all the things I'm talking about, those are experiences of anticipatory actions. And I say that they can make the difference between life and death. And regarding the social participation, we have got a social strategy of inclusive communities. And at the community level, in the neighborhoods, awareness is raised, people are trained previously, and they get organized hand in hand with the local authority so that they can have the reaction plans where this notification comes. For instance, in the indigenous community of Mexico, they receive our notifications through the community radio. Many indigenous languages are talked in Mexico, and we transmit this in Spanish, but in a very, very simple way.
So these preparation actions are very important part of the solution for the challenges we have today. Thank you very much.
Excellent. I'm delighted to hear so many practical approaches by government national representatives here as well, because only by doing that and engaging with communities, with those for whom we're here to serve, that I think is the critical piece. Thank you very much, Gloria, for your discussions around where some of the limitations still are. I think the issue of resourcing and timing was central to what you said. Without the resources flowing to the right level, we know that there's a fundamental problem of resources getting to the right level. And making sure that they are as local as possible is key. And that timing is everything if you're talking about early action. So one can have a system that's defined and a mechanism and a communication and decision tree that is very well outlined, but without the resources to actually activate and make that happen, that's where things would fall down. So thank you for that. I think the quality of data and the ability to leverage early warning systems based on the quality of that data was also another very important point that you made that somewhat limits our ability to utilize early action. And then I think the story of this being a very holistic approach, you know, the humanitarian and the economic. We've got to make sure that we are not viewing sectors of society as isolated, standalone, because we are all one system, and making sure that we address these problems holistically and in a holistic fashion, I think is key. And it's political, of course it's political, about prioritizing this and also making those resources available. But I really liked your messaging of teamwork, you know, including the meteorological agencies, civil protection, making sure that media and socials, and then bringing it down to a practical level. You know, preparedness is sometimes as pedestrian as cleaning channels, and making sure that, you know, we're not creating risks that could ultimately be avoided. So thank you very much for that. Again, I think let's turn to those that are online and in the audience. Do we have a question from online? Nazgul, is there anything else there?
There's one question regarding financing. So funding is usually available for response. How do we ensure that we can sustainably fund preparedness?
That's a great question. We know that, reactions are much more dramatic, or it's the ability to respond is always there, but telling a story that hasn't happened yet is challenging. Any thoughts on that, please?
Un poco compartir la experiencia.
Yes, I would like to share the Mexican experience. By law, it's in the budgetary law and it's a responsibility from the government. Every year, we include in the national budget resources for prevention projects, resources for emergency response, and resources for reconstruction. This is written in law. We have to do that. It's compulsory. And once we have a prevention project, any department in the system may ask for that. There's a committee which analyzes it, which approves, and then we send funding for these projects. When there's an emergency, there must be a declaration of emergency or disaster. And once it's approved, there's analysis of damages. And once it's approved, we send funding for reconstruction or for any action that may be needed.
Excellent. It's embedded actually in your system. I think that's an excellent example, and I appeal to those listening online and in the room that can also maybe take that example forward. I think it's brilliant. Anything, people in the room? Anyone?
Yes. Yeah. My name is I'm Dr. Lafane Peter. I come from Uganda, and I work with a local NGO called Mana Development Agency. We work at the triangle between Uganda, South Sudan, and Kenya. In fact, representing the Karimojong cluster, which live in the arid areas. And we always experience our disaster there is cattle rustling, which is human-made, but there is also drought, which always affect us. Now, I am impressed by the saying that we should not have just a physical inclusion, but we should also have an inclusion where our voices are integrated in the planning. Now, my question is on the localization and power redistribution. My question is that how does the G2025 framework propose to shift the decision-making power and resources to local actors in fragile and conflict-affected areas such as Karamoja for timely and context-specific preparedness? Thank you.
I could not see you in yes, I'm sorry that sitting backwards. It is a really very challenging question, and thank you for raising this question. Of course, I see that among these distinguished representatives here, everybody is wise to be silent, and I am crazy not to be silent. I cannot keep my tongue shut. But I must say that the more we raise this question, there is no solution for the moment. The wise men would have said if there was. But we need to raise this question as much as we can, because there are fire points, there are hot points on this planet, and it is burning terribly under war situations, and there are possible disasters that may be triggered by also human-made. This is also a man-made hazard. The war is a man-made hazard. We need to accept it like that and to address properly what the governments do when there is man-made hazard and how the international community acts on that. I don't mean anything political, I don't mean anything intervening into the decision-making of the countries, but still there can be technogenic issues, there can be nature-related issues. So we need to speak about that. This is the only solution. Thank you. Sorry.
No? Thank you very much for the question. It's good to challenge the panel as well. Thank you. Any more questions from in the room? Anyone I'm missing? Please, one behind.
Hi, thank you. My name is Majduleen. I'm from Jerusalem. My question is, we've been talking about effectiveness in this session, and my understanding of effectiveness is trying to achieve a certain goal, regardless of the waste that we are doing along the way. So if we want to focus more on this element of reducing the waste and minimizing the waste, and we want to pinpoint, and also we talk a lot about multisectoral coordination. If we want to pinpoint a certain ministry or a certain party that is going to be responsible in times of disaster to minimize waste and avoid duplication, who would that ministry be? Thank you.
Any of our government representatives that would like to speak? How to minimize waste? Who do we target? Who do we work with? Minimize waste along the way. How can we be most efficient and effective in our approach? And how can we engage our ministries and colleagues? Please.
The wise people are silent.
They're just thinking. They're just thinking about their response.
In reality, without a joke, this is a big issue. And I think that there is a big need of international support in one thing. The best solutions should be shared. I know countries that have wonderful waste management possibilities to create, for instance, building materials out of waste instead of using natural or other resources. So better examples to be shared among the countries could be a good solution. And of course, this is the responsibility to go to direct your question. This is a responsibility, first of all, for in case of our I would say realities, each community, each local authority is responsible for its territory. But in any case, if there are no tangible solutions on how to process it, because these are materials which can be either disposed or can be recycled and so on, and it needs a lot of engagement of new technologies and solutions how to solve it. So we need their academia, we need their chemists, we need their also good politicians to pursue these ideas. I think this is all.
Thank you once again. I understand that there's a slide with key recommendations that will also be displayed, so please feel free to put that up. And in the interest of time, I think we will now move to the closing. First of all, I'd like to say a huge thank you to the panelists that have joined today for sharing your wisdom, for being put on the spot with these questions, and for really participating and being part of this discussion and this conversation. I think that we've heard a lot today about meaningful inclusion. Don't just make this a box ticking exercise. Recognize it. Recognize the people that we need to include and talk to. Make sure the resources are there to support us in our work, and make sure that we contextualize. This isn't about one size fits all. There are some more recommendations that have been captured up on the screen, so I hope they do justice, but also please feel free for the rest of the day to continue the discussion. You know who the panelists are, you know who each other are now, I hope, a little bit. Please continue to keep this conversation very much alive. Okay, with that, I think we are now in the closing. We have a very special closing today, and I would like to pass to Armine to close our session out. Thank you.
Thank you very much. This is a small offer to this panel and a small crazy idea, another idea. You know, we are too wise or too sophisticated sometimes to see simple things. And the simple thing is that behind the data, behind technologies, behind policies, there is a simple human being which is never changing. And this simple human being has heart and has soul and has mind, which fears, which is afraid of something that have to come or will come, anticipate or not, being afraid of anticipation or not, being prepared or not, it will come. And there is always this spirit that I would like to keep behind everything that we have spoken. And I would like to finish with wisdom that comes from 12th century Armenian scholar, scientist, priest. And this is a song which says, early morning star, early morning sunshine, bring light to me and bring the wisdom to me, and let all the evil with its evil minds and evil seeds will be eliminated, and let us be safe with the wisdom of universe. Aravot luso, aregak nartar, aris luis tzakia, bachumi hore, bachyai hokvus, bankes ihajus. Chorar tots gitoch, chavaris shnoria, chorurt lusavor, charmatatochin, char sermans norin, choratos patoch, aravot luso, arekak nartar, aris luis tzakia.
Thank you so much, and I suspect that might be the only session you've attended that was ended in song, so I hope it's memorable for more than just that, but thank you for really rounding off an important and special session in such a special way. Thank you, everybody, for your engagement.